We'd already broken up halfway through the drive, but neither of us wanted to turn around. Too much had been said in the car, too much left unsaid before. New Mexico stretched wide and empty ahead of us, like it didn't care what we were going through. We stopped at the first cheap motel we saw after nightfall, a pale yellow one-story with a flickering vacancy sign. The girl at the front desk asked if we wanted one bed or two. We looked at each other a little too long before I said, "Two." She didn't smile. The room smelled like bleach and burnt coffee. I threw my duffel on the farthest bed and sat there, trying not to look at her as she pulled off her jacket in silence. Neither of us turned on the TV. We both lay there on opposite ends of the room, staring at the ceiling like it had something to say. At some point, she said she was going to take a shower. I didn't answer. When the bathroom door clicked shut, I let myself exhale for the first time in hours. I heard the shower running, but something about the sound felt off, like the water didn't echo right in the room. I sat up slowly and looked toward the door. It was still closed. Then faintly, I heard whispering. It was too soft to make out words, but it was definitely coming from inside the room. I stood up, thinking maybe she left the TV on in the bathroom, but we hadn't touched the remote. The whispers grew sharper, quicker, like two people arguing in hushed tones. My pulse jumped. I knocked on the bathroom door. "You okay?" I asked. No response, just running water. I grabbed the knob and slowly turned it, but it was locked. The second I touched it, the whispers stopped. And I mean stopped, cut off mid-word like someone had thrown a switch. The silence hit harder than the voices. The water still ran. I stepped back, heart racing. A minute later, she walked out wrapped in a towel like nothing had happened. "You say something?" she asked casually. I shook my head. I didn't want to sound crazy. She crawled into her bed and pulled the covers over her shoulder, back turned to me. I lay there, staring at the wall. It was past midnight when I started to drift off, but something jolted me awake. I heard it again, voices. This time they were louder, two of them, male and female, angry. And they were coming from inside the room. I sat up too fast, dizzy from the way the room seemed to twist in the darkness. My eyes adjusted slowly. Both beds were visible in the low orange light from the wall lamp. Mine was empty. Hers was still. I could see the shape of her under the blanket, asleep. But the voices weren't coming from her. They were coming from the space between the beds, low and sharp, like two people trying not to wake someone. My breath caught as I scanned the room. No one was there. Still, the words got louder, angrier, overlapping into something frantic. It was like listening to an argument underwater, half sentences, gasps, the scrape of a chair leg I hadn't heard move. I looked toward the corner of the room and something flickered, just for a second, a blur, a shadow with weight. I blinked, and it was gone. I turned on the light. The voices vanished the second the bulb clicked. I stood there in the sudden brightness, breathing hard. She didn't stir at all. I wanted to wake her up, to ask if she heard it too, but some instinct told me not to, like something wanted me to. Instead, I sat back down and waited. Every time I turned the light off, the voices came back. Same argument, same hushed urgency, but now I was picking up words. "Not here," the male voice hissed. "You promised," the female snapped. "You said this was safe." I flicked the light back on. Silence again. My skin felt like it was humming. There was something deeply wrong with this room, and I was starting to feel like we weren't just hearing echoes from somewhere else. We were being watched, or worse, shared. At around 3 a.m., I couldn't take it anymore. I grabbed my keys and wallet and quietly slipped out the door. The night air was cold and dry, the kind that clung to your throat. I walked to the parking lot and stood there, unsure what to do. And then I saw it. The light in our room was on. I hadn't left it on. A figure stood in front of the window, tall, thin, unmoving. It wasn't me, and it definitely wasn't her. It stood perfectly still, watching. But the shadow it cast was arguing with another. I felt the pull to go back. My feet moved before I made the choice. My hand was on the knob again, and my chest was tight. The moment I stepped back into that room, everything felt louder, thicker. The air almost buzzed, and her bed was empty. Her bed was completely untouched, like she'd never been there. The pillow still looked fluffed, the blankets perfectly folded. I stood frozen in the doorway, unable to move. For a second, I questioned everything. Had she even come out of the bathroom? But then I heard the arguing again, louder this time. The voices were clearer, bouncing around the room as if the walls themselves were talking. I turned slowly toward the mirror across from the beds. Two shadowy shapes flickered inside it, pacing, fighting. But in the room, still nothing. I stared, unable to look away. The shapes had our outlines, mine and hers, but moved differently, faster, more violent. Their faces blurred, as if smeared by motion or memory. One of them raised a hand like it was going to strike. I flinched, but the mirror image kept moving. Then the air dropped 10 degrees in seconds. I could see my breath fogging the glass. Something brushed my shoulder, but no one was behind me. I turned back to the beds, and now she was there, lying still under the blanket, eyes wide open, completely silent. "Did you go outside?" I whispered. She didn't answer. Her eyes twitched slightly, then locked with mine. "I saw us," she said softly, "in the mirror, but we weren't us." Her voice shook like it belonged to someone else. I didn't know what to say. I walked to the mirror again, but now it only showed the room. Just two beds, a window, and me standing alone. When I looked back at her bed, she had turned her face away. I couldn't shake the feeling that something came back with us, or maybe instead of us. We left before the sun came up, neither of us speaking. The sky over New Mexico was still dark, but a red glow hovered on the horizon. We didn't even check out, just grabbed our bags and left the key on the counter. The front desk girl was gone. 2 weeks passed before we texted again. She said she still wakes up sometimes and sees us standing in her bedroom mirror. I told her I unplugged all mine. Haven't used one since. She asked if I ever went back to that motel. I told her it doesn't exist on maps anymore. I think we left something there, or maybe it left us. I don't know if what came home with me is actually me. Some mornings I wake up in bed and feel like I'm still in that room, still stuck between two beds, two lives, two versions of us. My friend Zach and I were on a cross-country road trip when we hit a snowstorm somewhere in rural Utah. We pulled off the highway and checked into a small, run-down motel that seemed barely alive in the cold. The clerk barely looked up from her newspaper and handed us a key to room 6. We didn't care. It was warm, and we were exhausted from driving 10 hours straight. The room had twin beds, faded curtains, and an old wall heater that clicked every few seconds. Zach dropped his duffel on one bed, I took the other, and we both laughed at the strange brown stain on the ceiling. We weren't expecting luxury, just sleep. We turned off the lights by 10:30 and tried to ignore the weird sounds coming from the pipes. The motel felt oddly quiet, like the walls were holding their breath. I woke up once during the night and heard Zach whispering, though I couldn't make out what he was saying. I figured he was dreaming and rolled back over. At some point, I finally slipped into a heavy, dreamless sleep. The next morning, I opened my eyes and felt something was off. The blanket smelled different, and the bed was slightly firmer than I remembered. When I turned to look across the room, I saw myself sleeping in the other bed. My breath caught. My own body was still there, eyes closed, chest rising and falling. Panic surged in my chest, but I couldn't move. I tried screaming, but no sound came out. My vision began to blur as if I were staring through thick glass. I blinked hard, and suddenly I was back in my body, gasping, drenched in sweat. Zach sat up too, rubbing his eyes, looking just as shaken. "I just had the weirdest dream," he said, his voice low. "I woke up and saw myself sleeping in your bed." We locked eyes. Neither of us laughed. I slowly looked around the room. Nothing had changed, but something felt deeply wrong. It was like the air had thickened overnight. We checked the beds. The pillows and sheets had been disturbed, as if someone, or something, had moved us. But we both remembered falling asleep in our own beds. We couldn't explain it. We sat there in silence, trying to figure out if this was some kind of prank or shared delusion. Zach shrugged it off first, saying we were probably just overtired from the drive. He turned on the TV and tried to distract himself with static-filled morning news. I couldn't stop watching the beds, though. Something about them felt alive now, like they remembered us. We decided to leave that motel as soon as we finished our gas station breakfast across the street. The sun had come out, but it didn't feel warm. The way the motel stood behind us, still, cold, and watching, gave me chills. I didn't say anything to Zach, but I knew I hadn't imagined what happened. On the road again, we avoided talking about it for hours, letting the hum of the car fill the silence. But the discomfort didn't fade. Zach kept glancing at the rearview mirror, and I kept checking the reflection in the window, expecting something else to be there. It felt like we'd taken something with us. Later that evening, we stopped at a diner in Colorado and finally talked. "I know this sounds insane," I said, "but I think something happened to us back there." Zach didn't laugh. "I remember waking up," he said slowly, and it felt like I wasn't me. We tried to make sense of it. Could sleep paralysis do that to both of us at the same time? Could it be some kind of lucid dream overlap? None of the explanations felt right. We knew what we saw, and more than that, we felt it. Something had stepped between us. We made a pact to never speak of it again unless it happened a second time. It made us feel a little better, like we had some kind of control. But deep down, I think we both knew that Motel had opened a door we couldn't shut. The kind that doesn't close just because you drive away. That night we stayed at a Holiday Inn. Normal, well-lit, and with too many other guests to feel eerie. But the second I stepped into the room, I felt that stillness again. Not quiet, still. Zach was pale. "Do you feel it too?" I nodded. The beds looked the same. We didn't even try to joke around like we usually did. We turned the lights off but left the bathroom door open for just a bit of glow. Zach muttered something about setting his phone alarm and fell asleep almost instantly. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, listening for the heater that never turned on. At some point in the night, I heard sheets rustling beside me. I turned slowly, and Zach was gone. I sat up, panic bubbling fast, only to see him standing at the foot of my bed, just watching. "Zach," I whispered. He didn't answer. He just stood there. I reached over to turn on the lamp, and as the light hit him, he was suddenly back in his bed, snoring softly. I was frozen, heart racing, afraid to even blink. I didn't sleep again that night. I just waited, every muscle tight, for something else to move. We made it home the next evening, both pretending the trip had gone exactly as planned. I dropped Zach off first, and neither of us said much. He gave me a half-hearted wave as he closed his front door. Something in his eyes told me he hadn't slept either. That night, I finally crawled into my own bed, hoping normalcy would return. But at 3:17 a.m., I woke up with that same crushing stillness pressing into the room. My phone was on the floor, screen cracked, alarm blaring softly. I hadn't set it, and I was lying on the wrong side of my bed. I sat up, heart racing. The air was thick again, just like the motel. I looked around my room, but everything seemed exactly where I left it. Still, I couldn't shake the sense that I wasn't entirely alone. I kept the lights on the rest of the night. The next morning, I got a call from Zach's mom. He hadn't come out of his room all day, and she was starting to worry. I went over around sunset and knocked on his door. When there was no answer, I opened it slowly and felt that motel air rush straight into my chest. Zach was lying in bed, staring straight at the ceiling, unmoving, but clearly awake. His eyes blinked once, then slowly rolled toward me. "It's happening again," he whispered. His voice was scratchy, like he hadn't used it in days. "I think something followed us home." We stayed in his room the rest of the night, too scared to sleep. Around midnight, we heard footsteps pacing the hallway, slow, dragging steps that stopped right outside the door. I held my breath. Zach just stared. A soft knock followed, then silence. In the morning, Zach was gone again, but his bed was made and his shoes were still there. I searched the house, the yard, the street. Nothing. When I finally sat on the edge of his bed, I noticed something chilling. His reflection still stood in the mirror across the room. I ran. I didn't know where else to go, so I checked into a cheap motel just outside town, room 6. It looked exactly the same. As I set my bag down, the heater clicked once, then twice. I looked into the mirror and saw Zach sitting quietly on the other bed. Now I don't know what's real anymore. I fall asleep in one room and wake up in another. Sometimes I'm me. Sometimes I'm someone watching me. I try not to sleep, but the motel always finds a way to pull me back. I don't know if I ever really left. If this kind of thing has never happened to you before, consider yourself lucky. And if this was your first time hearing a story like this, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. You never know what kind of motel you'll end up in next. My sister and I took a trip to Arizona a year after our dad passed away. It was supposed to be a reset, just the two of us, cheap motels, roadside diners, and desert sunsets. We didn't talk much on the drive, both still stuck in our own heads. Grief has a way of making silence feel like a language. We pulled into a small roadside motel just after sunset, about 20 minutes outside Flagstaff. It looked worn but clean, with peeling green paint and crooked blinds in the windows. The guy at the front desk was watching something on his phone and didn't even glance up. He handed us a key to room 8 without a word. The room smelled like old wood and air freshener that wasn't quite doing its job. 2 beds, mustard yellow curtains, a humming mini fridge in the corner. My sister tossed her backpack onto the bed by the window and immediately laid down, shoes still on. I didn't blame her. The day had felt longer than it actually was. After dinner at a gas station diner, we came back to the room and watched something dumb on TV. Neither of us mentioned Dad. We hadn't for weeks. At some point, I fell asleep with the remote still in my hand and the screen flashing static from the DVD menu. I woke up once around 3 a.m. to the sound of my sister breathing heavily. I turned over and saw her sitting up in bed staring at the foot of it. Her eyes were wide and glassy. "You okay?" I whispered, still half asleep. She didn't answer, she just stared. I thought maybe she was sleepwalking, which she used to do as a kid. I was about to get up when she whispered, "Dad's sitting there." My blood turned cold. I didn't move. "He's just sitting there," she said again, eyes locked on empty air, like he used to. I looked where she was looking, and of course I didn't see anything. Just the end of the bed, a folded blanket, and the wall behind it. But the way she said it, calm, confident, like she wasn't afraid, that's what got me. I knew she believed it. After a minute, she lay back down and turned her face toward the wall. "He's gone now," she mumbled. "It's okay." She was asleep before I could even process what had just happened. I sat there for a long time, too scared to close my eyes again. The next morning, she acted like nothing had happened. We got back on the road, and she hummed to herself as she scrolled through breakfast spots on her phone. I didn't mention it until we were halfway through our pancakes at a roadside cafe. "Do you remember what you said last night?" She looked up, fork halfway to her mouth. "Number what?" she asked casually. I explained what I saw, how she sat up in bed, said Dad was there. She didn't blink. "Oh," she said, then laughed a little. "Weird. I don't remember that at all." That was it. No fear, no concern, no curiosity. It felt off, like something had been wiped from her memory. I stared at her across the booth. That laugh didn't feel like hers. It was too light, too distant. I didn't push it, but I started feeling like I hadn't dreamed it. That night we stayed at a different motel, this one newer and closer to town. It had LED lighting, soft white walls, and a TV that actually worked. But the second we got in the room, she went quiet again. Her energy dropped like someone had pulled a plug. She sat on the bed staring at her phone, not moving much. "You okay?" I asked. She nodded slowly, but didn't look up. "Do you ever feel like someone's still with us?" she mumbled. I paused, not sure how to answer. "Sometimes," I admitted. "Why?" She didn't say anything for a long time. Then she whispered, "Because I don't think he ever left." Her voice was different now, low, steady, more sure of itself. "I think he's been following us, from motel to motel, waiting for something." That last part chilled me. She went to bed early. I stayed up, scrolling through old photos of us and Dad. The last one was taken a year before he died, him sitting at the edge of her bed, reading her a story. That exact same posture she described. I hadn't thought of that night in years. Around 2 a.m. I heard movement again. Not loud, just the soft creak of the floor and a sigh, like someone adjusting their weight. I stayed still and stared at the ceiling. Then I heard her whisper, "You don't have to stay here anymore." And the air went still. She didn't speak again, but something about that moment felt final, like something had ended or been released. I didn't sleep until the sun came up. When I finally looked over, she was curled up peacefully, breathing slow, like nothing had ever happened. We finished the trip without talking much more about it. We stuck to scenic overlooks, fast food, and playlists from years ago. It almost felt normal until we checked into our final motel just outside Albuquerque. This one felt older than the rest. No logo, no other cars in the lot. The woman at the front desk looked tired, like she hadn't slept in days. She handed us a key without asking for ID, name, or payment. The moment we stepped into room 12, I felt something heavy. Not bad, just thick, like air that remembered things. My sister dropped her bag and walked to the far bed like she'd done it 100 times. "Feels familiar," she said under her breath. I paused. "What?" She shrugged. "Nothing." But her eyes stayed locked on the corner of the room, near the chair with the broken armrest. Later that evening, we sat outside eating chips and drinking warm soda from a vending machine. She suddenly asked, "What if he was never trying to scare us?" I looked over. She didn't meet my eyes. What if he just didn't know how to leave? It hit me then. Maybe she hadn't forgotten that night in Flagstaff after all. Maybe she'd remembered all of it and chose to carry it quietly. I didn't respond. I just nodded and looked out across the empty road, stretching into blackness under a pink horizon. That night, she fell asleep fast. I lay awake, feeling every creak in the walls like it meant something. Around 3 a.m., I sat up and looked toward the chair. It wasn't empty. I couldn't explain how I knew someone was sitting there, but I did. I didn't speak. I didn't move. I just sat there, breathing slow. And then, faintly, I heard him. Not with my ears, but somewhere deeper. Just one word. Thanks. It wasn't spooky. It wasn't cold. It just was. Like a final note that had waited too long to be played. By morning, the chair was empty, and the air felt lighter. My sister smiled while brushing her teeth, and for the first time on the trip, it felt real. We didn't talk about the night. We didn't need to. Something had passed through and finally moved on. We haven't stayed in a motel since. Maybe we never will. But sometimes I still think about those nights and the silence that followed. And I wonder how many people spend their lives haunted not by ghosts, but by memories that don't know where else to go. It was supposed to be just one night, cheap, quick, and forgettable. I was driving from Nevada to Oklahoma and pulled off the highway in a dead patch of Texas desert. The motel was small, maybe 10 rooms max, all lined up like they'd been untouched since the 1970s. I paid in cash, room 4. There was no front desk lobby, just a window where a tired man slid the key through without looking at me. The air smelled like rust and dirt, and the wind kicked up grit that stuck in my teeth. Inside the room, everything felt beige and stale. I tossed my duffel on the bed and locked the door. I showered, ate a bag of gas station trail mix, and sat in silence. No TV, no Wi-Fi, just the faint hum of the ceiling fan and the occasional knock of wind against the walls. I scrolled my phone until the signal gave out, then lay down and let the dark settle in. Sometime around 2 a.m., I woke up without knowing why. Not from a sound, just awake. The air felt heavier, like someone had turned the pressure up in the room. I sat up slowly and looked toward the door. The lock was still bolted. Nothing seemed disturbed, but I had that feeling, the one you get when you're being watched, even when you're sure no one's there. I stayed like that for a while, frozen in my bed. Eventually, I chalked it up to nerves and exhaustion. Just one night, I reminded myself, then I'd be gone. When the sun finally came up, the room looked totally normal again. I packed up, checked behind the door and under the bed like I always do, and walked out. There was no one else outside, no signs of life from any other room. I left the key on the mat and headed to my car. As I pulled onto the road, I noticed a small white dome camera mounted above the motel exit. One of those cheap motion-activated security types. I hadn't seen it last night. The red light blinked as I drove off. I didn't think much of it until hours later. Halfway through New Mexico, I stopped for gas and checked my phone. My signal was back. I had a notification from the motel's security app. I must have forgotten I signed up during the booking process. Exit footage available. 7:04 a.m., room 4. Curious, I tapped it. The video loaded grainy and slow. First, it showed me stepping out of the room and walking to my car. Nothing unusual. But then, exactly 2 seconds later, someone else walked out right behind me. Same door, same room, same key. But I was alone. I know I was. I watched the video over and over, zooming in on the frame as best I could. The second figure was too blurry to make out. A head slightly turned down, walking fast just a step behind me. Same height, same build, but their walk was wrong, like their knees didn't bend fully. I knew I hadn't seen anyone when I left. No sound, no door opening, no shadow. The door only opened once. I was certain of that, but in the video, it swings shut after the second person exits as if they were real. Not a glitch, not a double exposure. My chest tightened as I kept watching. The figure didn't follow me to the car. It just stood there, facing the camera. The image pixelated when I paused, but it almost looked like it was smiling. Not big, not wide, just enough to make my stomach turn. I pulled off at the next gas station and sat in my car with the engine running. I couldn't think straight. I even called the motel, but it went straight to a dead number. I tried searching the motel's name online. Nothing came up, not even a Google listing. I started questioning everything. Was someone in the room with me last night? Did I leave the door unlocked? I remembered locking it. I always checked twice before bed. But what if I had company I didn't know about? Someone I couldn't see, or who wasn't meant to be seen. I opened my duffel in the back seat and froze. My clothes were packed the way I always fold them, but something was off. There was a toothbrush in there, still wet. I only packed one. Mine was in my glove box. This one wasn't mine. It looked used. I threw it out at the next rest stop, trying to shake the feeling. I didn't tell anyone about the footage. Not yet. I figured maybe I was overreacting, tired, or tricked by bad pixels. But that night, at a regular hotel in Albuquerque, I started to doubt everything again. I was brushing my teeth when I caught it in the mirror, a figure just behind me, leaning in like it was trying to see what I was doing. I spun around, heart slamming against my ribs. No one, just steam and silence. I didn't sleep a minute that night. When I got back to Oklahoma the next day, I deleted the footage from my phone, but I still see that frame sometimes. The shape behind me, the half smile, the timing, every detail burned into my memory. I left that motel alone, but someone else didn't stay behind. Weeks passed and I stopped checking over my shoulder. Life slowly clicked back into place. Work, errands, late-night drives. I convinced myself it had to be a recording error or a delayed door sensor. Whatever it was, it hadn't followed me. That's what I told myself. But some things didn't add up. My apartment door would be unlocked some mornings. A window cracked open that I never touched. My cat would hiss at corners. Still, I kept dismissing it. That is, until my neighbor asked if I'd had a guest stay over. I told him no. He looked confused. I swear I saw two of you come in the other night. Same clothes, same building, just one stepped behind the other. I laughed it off, but inside, I felt cold, like that second figure still hadn't let go. Then came the voicemail. It was from an unknown number. Nothing but breathing, slow and steady, followed by what sounded like a quiet shuffle. And then a voice. Mine. Room 4. Still open. My voice, but warped, like it was recorded through water. I didn't sleep that night either. I called my sister, told her everything. She didn't laugh. She just asked me a question I didn't expect. Did you ever see the second person's face? I told her no. It was always turned slightly. She went silent, then said, maybe you weren't supposed to. That thought stuck with me. What if this thing, this presence, was never supposed to be seen? What if I had broken some invisible rule just by noticing it on camera? Maybe it wasn't malicious. Maybe it was just attached to that place. And now, to me, I tried going back. 2 months later, I drove the same route, GPS pinned to the old highway. But the motel wasn't there anymore. Not closed, not boarded up, just gone. Empty dirt lot, no foundation. Like it had never existed at all. No one remembered it either. Locals said there hadn't been a motel on that road for years. No business license, no reviews, nothing in public records, but I still had the key. Room 4. I kept it locked in a drawer, too afraid to throw it away. Sometimes I wake up in the middle of the night and feel movement in the room, just the air shifting, not violent, not loud, just enough to make me hold my breath and listen. Because even now, I can't shake the feeling that I didn't leave alone.